Welcome to The Art of Growth. This is Jim Zartman, and today Joel Hubbard and I are going to be talking about something that has been coming up a lot lately when it comes to communication and connecting with others. And we've been talking about this both in the business world with corporate clients and also on the individual front with individual clients. And so before we get into that, you can go to theartofgrowth.org to take a free Enneagram test if you haven't done that before, or instincts test to find out your instinctual stacking. And it's the pairing that gives us a good snapshot of who we are. You can sign up for the newsletter there where we have occasional helpful emails come out or keep up to date about upcoming classes or our next round of certification for those who want to go deeper in the Enneagram. And if you're a business, you can reach out to us about training there as well. But let's go ahead and jump into this conversation Joel and I had about strong body, warm heart, and flexible mind.
All right. Well, I've been using this. I don't know what I call it yet. It's a wisdom, a mantra. It's been called different things, but it's strong in body or strong body. I've had variations on whether I use a preposition or not. Strong body, warm heart, flexible mind. And
what's the context in which you might use this, or like where does this kind of come out?
So its emergence was, I'm not sure when exactly, but I was with a client doing some kind of coaching session where that just came to my mind in that moment. And I think it's the way my mind works is in the moment. It's usually when things coalesce. And I think that's what most of our minds work that way, I believe. It's just sort of like in a moment, things will come together. And of course, there's no mystery to the fact that you and I have been talking about centers of intelligence for quite a bit. And so this is just another version of that. There's nothing really different about it, except that I thought this makes a lot of sense. And I believe the context was someone needed to say something to another person that they didn't want to say because they knew it was going to create some kind of resistance or conflict. And one of them, I believe, had said something or done, established a boundary, but it was really firm and rigid and didn't have a lot of warmth or flexibility to it. And I thought, oh, that all made sense to me. That's the best approach. And I've been reflecting on my own interactions with, particularly with my wife. Like, do I, state something firmly or directly? But do I do it with warmth, or do I do it with, is it cold? Is it sort of at a place of where I'm guarded or defended, and the tone and the expression comes through is that way? It's not really setting you up for connection or for that, whatever it is that I'm saying, to be received well. But as I've been using it, it's the context in which it's being shown up is wide now. Yeah, from conversations to engaging in projects or tasks and how you do so, with the flexibility of how do you listen to, let's say, a presentation being given, and what's the state of your heart? Is it closed to that? Is your mind, firm on something? Can you take in new information, or are you just sort of like, no, I don't want to know anything different than what I already believe and think? So I saw the application starting to go wider, and it's beyond where I'm at. So part of the reason why I wanted to do a podcast is like, can you and I think through this and see if we develop it further? Yeah. And then open it up to all of you who are listening. Like, we want your feedback, because I think this is a co-creation kind of experiment that we're doing with something that feels intuitively true.
Yeah, because when you said that, and the more I've been thinking about it, I think of times when I'm communicating or someone's communicating with me, and my response is like, I either feel like I have to either give in or I have to resist, right? So I can get caught in that binary. And when resisting, I become very strong or firm or rigid in body, which means I'm not warm in heart, and I'm completely inflexible in my mind. My mind is being used to defend, to deflect, to argue, to convince. My heart has to be kind of pulled back because there's no room for that in there if I'm going to be rigid and firm in my body. And the other times is when I lose any sense of myself and I kind of go along with the flow. Then I am warm in body because I'm like, or gushy at least in body, where I'm going along with it. My mind it's not so much flexible, but permissive. I'm just giving it away. So it's flexible in the terms of like, I'm bending to you, but not necessarily that I'm creating a variety within myself, and my body is not strong. It's like not even present. It's almost like I have to divorce myself from it. And I've seen this in other people. When I've gotten really rigid, or I'm strong in body but cold in heart and inflexible in mind, I see other people having to either respond in the same. They have to meet me with that, or they acquiesce and they're okay, I'll go along with it, and they bend to that will. And so at that point, we've been talking about connection all year. At that point, there's no connection, no collaboration, no cooperation. It feels very kind of win-lose. And I think what you're advocating for here is when we include all three centers, we're looking for that win-win. We're looking for that state of being strong in body. And for me, I think that feels like a calmness, not so much a like
an againstness.
Yeah, it doesn't feel against. It feels like I'm on steady ground. I'm on firm ground. I'm myself, and I'm at a calm state, but I'm not needing to push forward. It doesn't have that forward or backward movement energetically. And then I like that. I like warm in heart feels really good to me, because it's like, I feel a sense of being for you, right? I am me. I am for you. And the mind space, we can collaborate and get to that win-win.
Yeah. Well, in the way you're describing it, I mean, all three seem to have to interact in order for that to work.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, always, right?
Yeah,
so this is this is home base for us in the Enneagram.
It is. I mean, we're saying something very obvious, but I think it does need to be said. It's like, I recognize that if I'm too flexible in mind as a 7, that means that there's no strength in the direction. There's no strength in body, right? There's just like wide open possibilities.
Yeah.
Right. So I started thinking about this and all the variations that it shows up. It's like, oh my gosh, sure, I can be flexible, but I can also be very rigid mentally. It depends. If I'm stuck on something, I need to solve it. It's like it's a frustration, so I'm stuck there. So I can see myself getting rigid there as well. So I think the variations for all different types is, like, I think about heart types who might lean warm in some sense, particularly if they're trying to establish connection. But it's like the warmth lacks maybe the strength of the body to be, I'm in my space. I'm occupying my own body, my own viewpoints, my own, strength. It's got all sorts of things to it that I think at any point we're leaning, again, with the centers, like Gurdjieff would say, it's like you're functioning from one dominant center.
Yeah.
And really the goal is to get to using all three.
Right.
But being able to be flexible or nimble between all three. And they're all operating together as a harmony. And I see this working here as well.
Yeah. And noticing which one are you most likely to exile from yourself when you feel at all in a situation that you're triggered. Like, what are you least likely to do?
Yeah.
Are you going to go kind of too accommodating in the body, not have a position, not have a sense of self? Are you going to go cold in the heart because you're withdrawing from that person and you just feel like it can be a strategy to either punish them or to feel safe and come back into myself and not be there with you when I would normally want to be in that heart relationally attached, connected, all of that? Or do you tend to just be like, I can't really think about that. I need to, my body needs to go along with you so my heart doesn't get hurt. And like, I think it's understanding which one do you tend to exile the quickest when you're in that tension spot.
Yeah, it's like I was playing this out of my own mind. Like, if I'm going to say something or I'm going to be strong in body about something, my mind immediately goes, but you could be wrong. You could be wrong about your decision. You could be wrong about your stance. You could be wrong about your boundary even.
Okay.
So then it's like, well, then I can't be strong in body. So it's like,
oh, I see.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just.
So as in making a commitment to an idea and there's the threat of being wrong.
Or a position that I'm taking. Like if I say I'm going to stand in my ground here, like this cannot happen anymore. Or, I choose to not do this anymore in relationship to another person. Or it's like, but I could be wrong.
Right.
So then I see myself going right to the mind and then doing so many gymnastics in that space. And so as you were bringing up that problem that you were just raising, it's like, oh yeah, it's easy to exile a certain center or to neglect one if you're trying so hard through another center to feel like safe in the world, to feel like there's a way to process even, to understand how things are. We understand through 3 different centers primarily,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting that you would say that because you don't want to be wrong, you might exile having a strong space in your body. So I think it would be helpful for us to kind of go through and define
them.
Yeah. So when you say strong in body, what does that mean in your mind?
So strong in body for me means it's a position that is authentic to where I'm at any given moment, rather than the anticipation of I might be wrong, or I might not have thought this through, or there might be another option or another possibility. Now, I need to do that because that's part of the journey for me. It's like I need to explore those things, right? So I'm not saying that I have to be strong. We should be strong in body, and then that's the direction. We strong in body, warm in heart, and flexible in body. There is no linear direction to this thing. So let's talk about truth. If something bothers me, but I'm not sure why it's bothering me, and it shouldn't bother me, and then I go through those gymnastics.
You feel like it shouldn't bother you.
Yeah.
It shouldn't bother me.
Shouldn't bother
that kind of
right,
story.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because of course we don't want to ever be affected by anything in life.
Don't wanna be affected.
It's like, so for me to state the truth of where I'm at is for me being strong in body. There's also truth in the heart center for me as well. So they're both kind of combined there. It's like, am I being honest about where I'm at? So I think that's a strength in just being honest about that.
Yeah, but also there's a real present tense to it.
There's a present tenseness for sure.
Yeah, the way you're describing
that is body for sure. Yes,
that's body, which means it's in the now. It's not in the future necessarily. Because even when you were saying I don't want to be wrong, that's a future possibility that I'm avoiding.
Yes.
So being strong in body means this is where I am right now, and I'm not going to be so firm and rigid in body. Like the other 2 components help it avoid going to an extreme of being the current reality is the permanent reality. It's just saying, this is where I am right now. This is how I'm experiencing you right now. This is the way I see this right now. This is how I feel at this moment based on what I've experienced. But this is where I am. This is a present tense experience. And there's an acceptance to that. The way you're describing it. It's accepting the current reality. Not as the permanent reality or the always been. I'm not like holding to it, but like this is my starting point.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah, I think there's a firmness to that.
Yeah.
Right. And when I walk in it does feel good. It's like, okay, I just stayed in my space. For me too, there's not a whole lot of other explanations or context given. Mm-hmm. It's sort of stating things plainly. And a lot of it is not because the context or explanation helps the other person. It's the context and explanation helps. It's like a way of managing reactions. If I give you the context, if I explain things to you, then I'm in some sense anticipating and then managing the reaction you might have to what I'm stating.
Got it.
Right. So it's less about what you might actually need. And it's certainly not given you the full option of just like having your own response and reaction to what's being said.
Yeah.
It's a way of managing it. Now, that's the low side. The high side is, I'm doing something in a way that genuinely helps you to understand the context, to put it in a way that's digestible by someone else, for someone else.
Yes.
There is that high, for sure. And I believe in that. That's a really important thing. But I can also see the low side where it's like, oh, that's more for me. That's more for me managing reactions.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you can see that relationship to time, that the head types have that focus on the future. What you're managing is not the moment. It's not the current present reality. It's the possible next.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I think that is part of the human need for predictabilities. Yeah. For creating models of variations of how someone might respond, and people that in general, I mean, we have those naturally pre-built. I mean, it's almost like you show up with them already in life, and then you tweak them as you go, and as you get to know people more, it's like, okay, this is a range of possible responses. I mean, we all do this. It's like if I'm going to go talk to a friend of mine about something, I know if I know that person really well, I know the range of possible reactions and responses.
Sure.
Generally speaking, there's always a surprise, but generally speaking, that is the predictive model, but it can be pushed to such an extreme. And I think it is most of the time pushed to an extreme of like the anticipation and the preparation, and then the sort of, now I've got my models and I know how to react and respond, and I'm managing outcomes there. I'm going to see what I can say to make sure that I get the best outcome, best response from you.
I get that, the managing outcome thing for the head types. I think as a body type, I might not be strong in body at that moment because I just want to do whatever it takes to get out of the immediate feeling. Mm-hmm. So it's whatever the immediate is, if it's deeply uncomfortable, I just want to do whatever it takes to end the immediate. And whether I can do that by controlling or anticipating or acquiescing, whatever the situation might require. Mm-hmm. It's not so much about managing outcomes or anticipating the next thing. There is so much about like this present moment is uncomfortable and I want to get out of what I'm experiencing in the present moment. Mm-hmm. So it's because there is such a focus on the immediate and the present with that relationship to time, it's and get me out of it.
Yeah.
What do I need to do? And so I think when I described earlier becoming rigid in body, cold in heart, and inflexible in mind, it's because if that'll get me out of it, or do I just go completely weak in the body, acquiesce, and appear warm in heart, even though I've exiled myself in that situation and bent by the other. I think that can happen probably for a lot of body types. I think for heart types, there can be, again, I might see this through the lens of all of the past experiences I've had, and I'm interpreting the immediate situation. And so I'm using past experiences to respond in the moment. I mean, there's other aspects of it. I think why do heart types do what they do? They tend to do in that situation. Mm-hmm. Do you think?
What I've heard from some heart types related to the strong in body is like, to be strong in body is for them to occupy space. Like, the difficulty is how much the heart pulls them into the other person's space. It's not so much always the agenda, because it's, depends on the heart type, but definitely in their space, like experiencing them to such a degree that it's difficult for them to return and be in their own body, their own space. They've described it that way. When they are strong in body, it's like I can state something, and I can state something here's my boundary, and here's what I don't want to do anymore. And when they state that plainly, that feels really powerful for them. I feel like a strength, a sense of identity, a sense of, I can be who I am.
That sense of identity is a really key component, because I think what I notice with a lot of heart types is when they aren't actively being warm in heart towards you, it's withdrawing the heart. Mm-hmm. So I then pull it back to myself to kind of keep it safe. So then I'm not present. I'm not with you. The warm in heart component requires to be with you right then and there.
Yeah.
I can't pull my heart back and just like let my body say, okay, well then I'll go along with it, but not really. Because I do see that a lot of times with heart types, they'll struggle with that kind of like, well, I'll go along with it. I'll say kind of yes, I'll acquiesce. I'll feel like I had to be flexible and go with you. But then in that, I actually pull my heart back because it doesn't feel like it was included. Mm-hmm. And that inclusion piece is so important to the heart types. So that relational distance ends up feeling like I'm pulled back.
Yeah, and you can see where the body can be tremendously helpful to them to be fully the heart person that they are. And I think that is true for all centers. Whichever one is your dominant, it is served by the others. Yeah. So for heart types, when it's like I'm feeling insecure here, I'm feeling unsafe, I'm feeling like you're not really present to me, you don't really care about me, you're not participating in what I'd like to achieve. And I feel like you're withdrawing, you're pulling back. It's at some point it's like, well, then I'm going to shut down, right? But they shut down, and that feels like a strong body sort of thing, but it doesn't serve their heart center. when they can be both present, but also like I'm feeling you, I'm noticing you, but I'm also noticing me. And I'm still going to take a firm position here. I've modeled this. I've actually had one of them. So let's practice the strong in body thing together. State what you want to state and state it truthfully.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, here we go. Try it. It's like, okay, that was a little colder than you might want it to be. Let's try again.
Right.
And the practice of it, it's like, okay, there it is. That's the authentic me, or that's the me at my better version, rather than the authentic in the moment, how I feel. This is authentic to who I'm aspiring to be, the person I'd like to show up as. So, it's I think the dominant center is served by the others when it's all three working together like that.
Yeah. And when we were talking about strong at body and someone brought up the calm at body, I resonated a lot with that for this reason, is that I think if you looked at our wheel of emotions, the thing we have as the centerpiece for body types is the desire for peace. Whether I need to control and then it'll be at peace, I need to acquiesce and then I'll be at peace, or I have to do everything right and then I'll be at peace. There's a seeking of peace. And so to be strong in body means having this sense where like I'm at peace with where I am right now. And then I want to share it from that place of peace. And there's an energetic sense of just like calm, of settling into myself, of I'm at peace with myself. I'm at peace with where this moment. And yes, I can think it can be better. I think it can be improved upon. I can think it can be more connective. But when we say that acceptance, it's not like a mental acceptance. It's like I'm in a calm state of, this is where I'm at right now. And I have made peace with this being my position at the moment. And I'm connecting with you because I would like us to get to a good place together. So that definition of strong, because it does take a lot of strength to be at peace with yourself.
Yeah.
So when I think of being calm, it's because someone feels like they are strong enough to be calm. Like I'm calmer in certain situations than I think a lot of other people are, because I'm used to pressure. I'm used to, even training in martial arts, we talk about this all the time. Like you are more comfortable with physical threat. You don't get as spiked in your adrenaline. Your body is at a more of a calm state in emergency situations, in chaotic situations, because you have this sense of like, I know how to handle this. I know myself in this situation. I know what I'm capable of in this situation. I know how to handle this. And so there's this sense of like calm and peace, but that comes from the strength that you've established.
Well, and I think that's an important piece is it's easy to be a person of peace when you're feeling weak. Weakness is not peaceful. That's not genuinely being strong in that calm or peaceful way. And I think that some people need to actually practice being a bit more, I'm going to say some shit. And it might get me in trouble. But it's like pushing outward in that direction. Now, if you're already a person that does that, that's not a justification for you to do more of that. It's like the awarness of what is my tendency.
If it doesn't feel risky to you, maybe don't.
It's not
an edge of growth.
No, it's like, you could hear someone going, see, they said that you should be that, so that, you've already been doing it. So it's not your area of growth. But it's to recognize what is terrifying to me. If I'm a person that's aggressive, what's terrifying to me might be to be a person that's vulnerable in a situation. And that from that place of vulnerability, that will be where you find your strength in body.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, I can be calm here and non-reactive.
Yeah. For sure. And I think that is true for a lot of body types, is like to stay what we're saying is warm and hard as we go into defining that. I think sometimes the way we can have conversations is like a scene in a movie where someone comes in to visit someone in prison, but it's like they have to pick up a phone and there's like bulletproof glass in between them. It's like there's this barrier there because I'm not with you. I'm not in warmth in there with you. I've got this thing up.
Yeah.
And so I'm not really engaging with you, I'm still safe.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, as long as you know, like, I'm totally fine. There's like zero risk to you.
Yeah.
Then you're probably not doing the other two.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why I think strong in body is so broad that we've barely scratched the surface of it.
Sure.
Even in our trying to explain it here, it's like, for those people who tend to be more passive and avoidant and fearful, it's like, then your work will be to lean more into the strength of the body, to find that you can speak truthfully, directly, firmly, and find some inner strength. Like, wow, people bent to that. I didn't bend to the point of breaking, like constantly bending, constantly moving around these obstacles that I perceive are in my way.
Yeah.
And then, I stood up and I actually spoke firmly and truthfully, and people bent to that around me. It's like, oh my goodness, I have the power to do that. Yeah. And that feels really good to that person who's never done it or seldom does it. And then you learn to harness that in a way that is beneficial, not only for yourself, but for the world around you. Ultimately, I'm convinced that's the goal of this thing, is that it's beneficial to you and big and, italicized and everyone else.
Yeah. I can hear people responding internally, though, and being like, well, I'm not confident enough to do that.
Yes.
So, how do I feel confident enough in order to do that? And so confidence comes from, and only from, the competence of experience.
Yeah, I was thinking the same word, competence.
Yeah, it comes from the competence and experience.
Yeah.
So that's where confidence comes from. If it comes from anything else, that's probably some kind of a mental illness. Like there's an ego there, there's a narcissism there, there's something else there. Confidence only comes from doing it. No one feels confident. I had someone talking to me about this with coaching, and I said, you don't understand. Like, my first year of coaching, the first 10 minutes, I was in this panic of thinking, well, how are we going to make it to the end of the hour? Am I going to have anything positive to contribute? Are they going to feel like I was a waste of money? Like, those were the thoughts going through my head that I had to like calm and settle. But 6 years on that we've been doing this now, I'm stoked. I'm excited. I can't wait to see what they uncover about themselves, because the focus isn't even on me anymore, because the confidence has come from the competence of experience.
Yep.
And that is the only way to do it.
100%. This morning's coaching call, the individual says to me, well, how do I get past the sense of inadequacy of doing this thing that I'm supposed to do in life?
It's only one way.
It's like there was only one answer I could give him. It's like, well, you can try to find your childhood wound. You can go, try different variations of like, you can do the attachment styles. You can do all sorts of things.
All somewhat helpful. Yeah.
Yes. But nothing is going to help you get around that feeling. That feeling is natural and should be there, actually, I think. It's a good resistance. It's a good reminder you are incompetent. Absolutely. Yeah. But the only way to get competent
is through experience.
Is through the experience, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I've told this story before, but I have a client who came to me and said, I got this book accepted as a proposal like years ago, and for years now, I haven't been writing it. I have all these components of it, and I haven't done it, haven't finished it. And so came to coaching to figure out what was wrong and why she wasn't finishing it. And I said, it doesn't matter why. The only way to do it is just to do it. You don't need to know why you're not doing it. You just need to take the next step. Like a few months later, it came out, and it's done really well. But it just was a matter of, we think if we have the right answers or we understand the feelings, that will give us a confidence to be strong in body. But it's not. It only comes through experience.
No, we're still trying to resolve it through the head and heart again. It's back to the head and heart. I'm going to solve it through that.
Right.
And you can't solve it. You have to be strong in body. And that means, well, this is going to suck. This is going to be hard. I'm going to face my demons. I'm going to face my ghosts. I'm going to face the darkness.
Yep.
And all of these things are going to come up while I'm doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing. I mean, can you imagine that author? Like every time that person sat down to write, flooded probably with those Same
Yeah. Then I need to solve,
existential
and the belief
feelings.
I need to solve it.
I got to solve these. Why do I feel inadequate? Why do I feel stupid? Why do I feel like someone else has already done a better job of this? Why do I go through all of this and it makes me feel like this? Well, I don't know why.
But you don't need to.
No.
Because it's a lot of the things about being strong in body is you can only teach the body. You can't teach the mind. We say this in jiu-jitsu. We say this in surfing. It's like you either win or you learn. That's the framework that everything falls into, is like you win or you learn. Because every single time, you actually don't learn that much from winning. You actually learn more by like the mistakes you make, and you find your way through because you gain all the experience. You become the Edison. Like, I didn't fail. I just found 75,000 ways not to make a light bulb. Like it's it's all of these different experiential things that give you that sense of being strong in body. So when we say be strong in body, we know that the other components might feel inadequate, might feel not confident, might not feel, and you might have very good reasons to not feel confident because you don't have the experience. It might be the first time you've stood up for yourself or you've said what you really think, and it may come out really messy. Like we've said that many times, like when you first start developing a skill, it comes out messy.
So you're saying that maybe being strong in body might also mean you're weak?
You're going to expose your weakness in doing it.
Isn't it true, though?
And isn't it good?
Yeah. Because it's like, that's the difference between being rigid and strong.
Yep.
That's the difference between being defended and strong. Because I was saying this to a few on our Discord channel, like we were having this conversation around, there's different forms of strength. There's strength that's glass, which is very rigid, but under a certain amount of pressure shatters. Now it has its use and its purpose. Right? But then you take a polycarbonate and it's very flexible, light, bendable, was super strong.
Yeah.
Or you take a palm tree that's supposed to be where it is, where there's high winds and it flexes and bends. It's strong, right? But so is an oak tree. But an oak tree is probably not going to be located in the tropics, because it's just too firm, too rigid. It will break. And I think that there's all sorts of strengths. And to be aware of, when we say strong in body, that's what we mean. We don't mean like you are indomitable. You're the Hulk. It means you get knocked down. It means you find out your weaknesses. You discover, wow, I am terrible at this thing that I'm supposed to be doing, or that I feel drawn to, that I really would like to put out into the world. Or I'm going to confront some situation I've never confronted, or talk to a person in a way that I've never talked to them before, and I really don't want to do poorly at it. Well, no, you won't do great. Let's put it that way. If you nail it, consider that luck.
Yeah.
Next time, you probably won't nail it, and the next time after that, you probably won't nail it. But that's the thing we all fear, is being incompetent, being inadequate, and doing it poorly.
And I don't know if this will make sense unless you've walked this path for a while, but this is why I think that strength and peace are inextricably intertwined, and there's no real separating them once you've seen someone who's learned to do this over time. There's a sense of strength about them, but there's also a sense of peace.
Yeah.
And I think that is the combination that is developed over time when you walk that path.
Yeah.
So let's talk about warm at heart. Like, how do you define that? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, and I think warmth can be perceived in a few different ways, and I think it's all good. One of them is I'm feeling a sort of desire for the world, for the people around me to be benefited by what I'm doing. So there's a lean, let's say, a direction I'm aiming that is like, I want this to be good for you. And I think when I have that as a desire in my heart center, that's what I mean by warmth. There's a warmth to that. Sometimes it comes with a bit more of that tenderness, that affection. But sometimes it just comes out as, I'm doing this for your good and for our good, for our collective good. I might be wrong in that, but I can tell you that my heart's desire, genuinely in that moment, and sometimes I have to act as if it's true, because I don't always feel that that's true, not at the emotional level, but when it's a value for me, which it is, and when I can live from that, I lean in that direction of, I choose to act as if I genuinely care about you, and I want the best for you, and I want the best for me, and I want the best for all of us. And so I think that warmth comes through where there's not it's the opposite of that rigidity, that shortness that I can have at times, the sort of coldness that comes from sometimes from that defended space that I live in quite often.
Yeah.
So I think that's what warmth looks to me. The other thing is that it just also means that my heart's awake.
Yeah.
Like, it's not in a sleep state. It's not, frozen. It's awake. So it can have sometimes a little heat to it. Sometimes it can have a little anger to it. Sometimes it can have a lot of anger. But I think it's awake, and it's engaged. And that is probably one of the hardest things for us to do as humans, is to be really present in the heart center and open in the heart center. Like, I'm open to you. There's this give and take where I might get wounded in this engagement, but I'm allowing myself to be affected by you in this engagement. To me, that is,
yeah.
If there's something I can grow in for the rest of my life, that's the space. And that's the space of connection, I believe.
Yeah, I would agree, because there's a sense in it when we hear that phrase "warm at heart," which is that I'm for you. Mm-hmm. That it's not like I've discounted you, I've pushed you outside. I am for you, I am with you. And there is a term of proximity there. And we talk about this a lot with the heart types' sensitivity and relationship to proximity. What is the distance between us? And so there's a desire to close the distance between us. And when I talk about being warm at heart, I think of the Thich Nhat Hanh thing when he talks about his own mantra when he's with someone. There's like a few different parts to it. And the first one is that, darling, I'm here for you. So I am here, present to you. I'm with you. There's a proximity that's not distant. And his second mantra is, and I'm so happy that you're here. Mm-hmm. So it's like this warmth of desire that, even if there's something wrong, I'm still glad we're in this together. I'd rather us be in this together and struggle than to be separate from you. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something very important about that. And for him, he has these 4 mantras when he's interacting in this way. The third one is, I know you're suffering. And it's, so I see you and I see the struggle that you're in. And there's a warmth to me seeing that. And the 4th mantra is, I suffer too. Mm. And so that I'm here for you. I'm happy to be with you. I see that you're suffering and I suffer too. Mm-hmm. Like that to me is warmth. Mm-hmm. It's the heart of saying the proximity is not far and I am for you in this process.
Yeah. I'm gonna use that for our coaching students, because that is something that articulates very well what it is that I have practiced and tried to practice. Yeah. That is the disposition. So well said. That is the disposition of a heart that's really engaged in connection with people. It's beautiful. And it's a practice because when we're actually trying to be strong in body, it can be very difficult to also have that disposition of heart.
Oh, yeah.
It's very, very difficult, but I like it as a practice and as a mantra that every time you're with somebody that's going through, it's like, yeah, I'm here for you. And if there's suffering, I'm suffering with you. If there's celebration, I'm celebrating with you. Mm-hmm. It's definitely this thing of like, can you stay longer? And I find it in myself like, ooh, I'm leaving. Like they just said something, they're celebrating something, it made me think of something, so I want to talk about that. Or, ooh, I felt a little twinge of envy. They've got something I don't have. All those things are happening at any given time. And the return is important. It's like, okay, right, you just felt the envy. Oh, right, it just took you to somewhere else. Your attention went somewhere else. Okay, right, return. Because the heart center, it is about that. Okay, I'm curious about other things. That's the head center. I want to dive into that. Or I'm feeling envy. That's the heart center, but I'm feeling envious, right? Or I'm feeling like, what's wrong with me? that you're there and I'm not. So that just made me feel insecure, made me feel pretty poor about myself. Okay, return to that. I'm here for you. I'm here with you. Can I just celebrate that with you in this moment and not have to have anything else to say? I used to think like, that's so stupid. Like, what does that do for anybody? Really, genuinely thought
What does
that
it
was stupid.
solve, right?
What does it solve? Exactly.
Yeah. The warm of heart is not about solution. It's about that exchange of like, I'm in proximity to you, regardless of what it takes.
Yeah.
Even if it's not okay. Like, this is the willingness to be with you in it, not necessarily just because we can fix it. Because a lot of the things that if we show up to someone and they're in grief, proximity and presence is the great gift, not solution. And so when we talk about being warm in heart, it includes this awareness of their suffering and ours. It includes awareness that sometimes there is not always a solution. And it includes the awareness that everything matters, everything belongs, because this is the part of us that reminds that. And when we have that awareness, warmth is a result.
The other side of it is you being honest about where you are emotionally. I think warm at heart is like, so I had a client do this beautifully. And he said to me, I spoke the truth to a family member.
Mm-hmm.
And they were surprised by that. And they were like, this is new.
Because I'm used to you.
A different way, yeah. It's like, okay, but you were angry, correct? Yes, I was angry. I had one client ask me, well, does warm at heart mean that it feels like I tend to do a lot of that with my partner. But how do I do that then if I'm warm at heart with this partner, but I'm actually angry? Do I just deny the anger and go back to being warm towards the person? I thought, well, great question, because warm can imply that. But it also means that you're awake to your heart center. So it doesn't mean that you're just going to go, I'm here for you. It's not about me. Because some people do that naturally to a degree that they're in denial of their own truth. So, no, you're angry because your partner keeps doing the same thing over and over again, even though you've asked them not to do that, and they did it again. Can you be truthful about your anger? And it was like, how do you, the big question again that comes through is, well, how do you do it, right? How do you express anger in a way that doesn't destroy the other person?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you express your anger by saying, hey, right now I'm feeling very angry. And there's nothing to solve it. No solving it. I'm just expressing that that's what is going on. I found that helpful for me. I was starting to do this. I'd say, instead of saying what I thought the anger wanted me to say, which was accusatory, judging the other person, saying what I really think the other person, like because it fuels the mind, right? So the anger then fuels the mind, and it fuels the body into action. So the mind gets going, and it's like, da, da, da. You want to say a lot of things. It's like, or you want to say nothing.
Well, because anger wants an action. And so the action has to be external.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in that moment, it's like, okay, good, because anger is it is a good fuel source. It tells you that there's something off, something wrong that needs to be addressed. What that is specifically, we don't know yet, but there's definitely intensity there. And so, like, to deny that there's anger, to think that warm at heart means you are always gentle, affectionate, present to the other person's pain, not to your own, is not what we mean by warm at heart at all. So yeah, you do need to be awake to that, communicate the anger, communicate what's going on, but
it has the welcome still.
Yeah. You're still open. You're open in the relationship.
Yeah. I think that's it. That's it right there. So flexible in mind. What do we mean by being flexible in mind?
So flexible to me is there's the extremes of being so flexible you land nowhere, and that's a head type weakness sometimes. And then inflexible can mean you're getting yourself stuck in a spin. You're in a spin cycle, and it's never ending.
Yeah.
It's a broken spin cycle, so it's never coming to a conclusion. And you're just there, stuck. That's what I mean by inflexibility, is that stuckness in that. Or the inflexibility around a position you've adopted, whether it's a belief about a person, about religion, or about politics, about anything really. It's like you have a position, you have a belief, and now what you're seeking is anything that will confirm that bias, that idealism or that ideology you possess. It's like, now I just seek that which supports that. And anything that doesn't becomes either dismissed or argued against, but it's not something that's ever integrated. And so you've become inflexible in many regards. You only see things through black and white lens. It's only this or that. It's very binary. It's, you're not for us, you're against us kind of thing. It's like,
oh, yeah.
Well,
that's inflexible.
There's a lot of other options
yeah.
besides that. Even in solving complex like problems on a team, in an organization, it can become to the point where you just like, well, it's this or that, or what are we going to do? No, we can't do this. We can't do that. We can't do. It's a bunch of, it's that hyper vigilance, that hyperactivity that you can sense the energy just going really supercharged. It's like, well, then you're not open. You're not open to the possibilities. And I actually think that the lack of openness in the mind is not a mental problem. It's a problem of the heart. It's a problem of the heart center that is not something has gone on that has not been addressed, and it's fueling this inflexibility in the mind. So flexibility is, I use it as a gauge for myself. So I think, okay, where am I right now? Why am I stuck on this? Why am I stuck? Oh, yeah. There's something else going on that my heart is dealing with that my body hasn't engaged yet. Okay, so that's why there's a stuck point here. But yeah, that openness to like, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I'm going into this and I'm going to confront this situation, or I'm going to engage in this project without knowing everything that I would like to know. I'm going to engage in this project and I'm going to learn along the way. I'm going to be surprised. So can I be okay being surprised by people that I think I already know? They're already in categories, right? Yeah. Everybody's in a category. So I've already figured them out. I've already figured out my politics. I've already figured out my religion. I've already figured out, so many things about life. You know these people. We all know these people. Yeah. We are these people. And so it's like, but we can see it much easier in other people. It's like, wow, they really dogmatically think this way. They've judged these people, or they've, this is the way they speak about their partner, or this is the way they speak about their boss or their employees. It's like, you've got it all figured out. There's no openness to being surprised, to learning, to discovering. And that's why I think the three should function in a harmony. It's because, new information, new discovery. Okay, so how is that going to guide us in the area of being, now how do we move forward? How do we engage this with strength and warmth?
There's a functional benefit to that inflexibility that you're describing, is because it appeals to the head center's desire for safety and feeling like I'm going to have what I need, I'm going to be secure. Because to find out that you're wrong, I'm sure you've had this experience, but I know for me, when I found out I was like completely wrong about something that I had held to for a while, you just feel deeply unsafe. Like the world is not okay anymore. It feels unpredictable. The future doesn't feel certain. Where am I? Like there's a real sense that I've lost my bearings. Mm-hmm. And so I think some get really inflexible. And there's lots of stats on this. For instance, like people who believe in conspiracy theories, if you show them evidence, they just think the evidence has been tampered. They just double down.
Yeah.
So there's an inflexibility of mind because believing this gives me a sense of security. Mm-hmm. And whether that security is that I'm special, or I know something others don't, or it gives me a sense of security in my community, the people that I trust, whatever that is, it gets really attached to that. Mm-hmm. And so the idea of being flexible, that could mean that I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'm not safe. Mm-hmm. So you can see why inflexibility appeals to people, because I think the mantra for the headspace, when you start to feel that inflexibility, is I am deeply okay and I'm safe right now. Because otherwise we're going to end up in that spin.
I was coaching a team leader and she was saying, I've got a mixed team now, kind of put together recently. And there's a group that's really been disillusioned by all the change that's been happening in our organization.
Yeah.
And they have all their reasons. And this leader said, how do I respond to that? Because they're disengaged. They're doing their work, but they're not doing it with like positivity or creativity. It's just like, I'm going to do this, but I'm resistant to any sort of forward movement towards growth and towards creativity. And so it's like there's a strong resistance. How do I deal with that? And I was like, well, listen to them. What's your perspective? Right? What's your views? How do you see this? It's like, oh, we've been through so many changes, and then you're going to throw this new thing at us, and it's like, do whatever you tell us, but whatever. So how do you respond to that? Well, oh no, you're right. Yeah, you're right. There's been a lot of changes. Wow. Yeah.
That's really
I hear your perspective. I hear your viewpoints. Crazy, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. So you come alongside with.
Right. You're doing the opposite of adding to the energy. You're like just letting it, you're like, making space for it.
Yeah. You're actually understanding their perspective.
Yeah.
And then does not mean you have to be so flexible in mind, does not mean you have to be weak in the sense that we were talking about the body without any direction, without any forward movement. You could still say, yeah, this is what we're doing. This is where we're going. This is the direction we're heading in. You could still have that, but still be like, sure, yeah, there could be a lot of different reasons why that. And I'm with you. Many days I think like, gosh, are we nuts to be doing this and moving forward? But how can you participate in moving towards this goal? How can we do this together? What would be a way to do that? And so you're inviting them in there. So you're demonstrating strength, that you're not shifting. Mm-hmm. You're not being, we're going one way today, we're going another way tomorrow. No, you're still choosing a path while still being like, yeah, we could be wrong. Of course.
Right.
And if we start to discover we're wrong, we'll pivot. We'll adjust, right? That's flexible in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think flexibility in mind is deeply tied to something I was talking to our group about. We do 3 weeks on connection through the headspace. And one of them is on curiosity. And this is like a huge value of mine, is just because I think I was raised in a culture that didn't have a lot of curiosity, because it meant that you could get tricked or deceived, or you're not safe. Like that was the really thing, though. You're not safe. But curiosity and asking great questions and being genuinely open and wondering about someone else's experience, and it like that creates a sense of connection, because we were doing curiosity versus like the ways that we get out of it. So for some, it's like I'm trying to convince you of my opinion, right? So we see a lot of that energy where there's a lack of curiosity. A lot of times there's a high presence, so I need to convince you, or I need to control you. And then we've also said like cajole, or like manipulate or manage you in some way. And so whenever we see one of those mechanisms turning on, either the need to control, to convince, or cajole, we are lacking that curiosity, that genuine, where are you? What's going on with you? Like, I want to understand where you're coming from. And I'm comfortable sharing, this is where I'm at right now. Like, what do you think? Like, let's actually have a collaborative conversation where we are both making contributions, because that is incredibly important to flexibility.
Yes.
Is that there are multiple contributions, because that's what we talk about, multiple perspectives. This is headspace gift. And so we actually don't appreciate the gift if we can't welcome it into that space.
I love that. And it makes me think too of flexibility does not mean you don't have a viewpoint.
No, it means you do.
It actually means you do. Right? Because if you didn't have one, you wouldn't be able to be flexible with what you have. Right. Yeah, very, very good. I like that way of looking at it, is you bring in your viewpoints, you bring in your perspectives.
Yeah.
But there's also there's the contribution, there's also the reception of like, what are you bringing to the table, and how can I be affected and maybe see something differently than the way I saw before?
Because it makes space for the reality of evolution. Like the fact that these ideas are always evolving. Ideas and the way that we interact, the way our works, and even the way our minds move. The mind is always evolving and changing throughout human history, able to do different things. And so I'm asking for participation in my evolution.
Oh, yeah. That's a huge thing. And that's actually the way we're designed as a social species. I mean, we're not individuals making our way through the world. It's like we are a society. We are a human beehive that is making our way through the world. And so very much I evolve because of your input in my life and vice versa. So I think that's really, really cool. To kind of wrap this up, it's interesting how you put presence, proximity. All right. So we got presence, body, proximity, heart, and perspective would be would be head center.
Hey, didn't even realize that.
Because that's what we were just talking about.
Yeah, you're right. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, in cognitive sciences is brilliant thought that's been presented. And that's like, even truth there's a type of truth that's perspective truth. It's how you see things. Hey. And I think very much head center. Like how we see things is, I see things different than you, but it's nonetheless very true to me. Okay?
Yeah.
And so I think it's beautiful to think about things through how do you make that connection through strong in body, warm at heart, and flexible in mind as you do so through I'm present to where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And in relationship to you, in relationship to myself, in relationship to reality. I'm present to myself. And I'm also in the area of proximity, I'm recognizing the dynamic between you and me. Where are you? I'm here for you. You're here with me. There's that I'm here with you right now in the space. And then it inevitably leads, of course, to the perspective piece, which is curiosity. Where are you at? How do you see the world? Yeah, that warms my heart. I like this.
So thank you for joining us, and we hope this is helpful as we begin this conversation. We have a lot more coming on this soon. The best way to help the show is to leave us a review on iTunes or share this episode with someone. You can also follow us on Instagram at just Art of Growth and go to theartofgrowth.org to sign up for our newsletter or find out more about coaching. And if you are a Massachusetts-based company, there's a state program where the state will pay for you to be trained by us in communication, conflict, and the Enneagram. But for now, my friends, may you take this lesson to heart, to mind, and to body, and may it seep into your connections, your conversations, and may you take action that honors the whole of you and the whole of the other, so that in our conversations and in our communications, we do not leave out a part of us that allows us to be expansive in our mind, to be vulnerable in our hearts, and take the actions that are truest to our values. Grace and growth, my friends.